recently we had that Edward Kinyani had passed away. Dave, you were close with him. Maybe you can give a tribute.
Yeah. So I think it's a sad week in all of rugby in Kenya because Edward Kinyani, as many other guys knew him, everyone knew him as Ogre. Basically, built a lot of people's careers. So he was a great athlete in his time, playing for Kenya, coaching Kenya Harlequins. Also started the relationship between SA and Kenya when Rassi Rasmus, I think, was at the Stormers a long time ago. So it's a sad day for sports, and what he did for this country won't be forgotten.
Yeah, he'll be fondly remembered. Yeah, rest in peace. Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of Spot the Difference. As always, we're here to bring you everything sports. And I'm your host, Joseph Njoroge Mwangi.
And your co-host, Dr. Boyd.
Yes, today we have a special guest. And like we had intimated at the beginning of this show that this is a platform to bring athletes, former athletes, aspiring athletes, to discuss as a community how we can move sports forward as a nation. So in light of that, we invited David Ambunya, a close friend of ours. David Ambunya has a very stellar career in rugby, having represented Kenya Harlequins from 2009 and represented the Kenya Simbas at the national level. So, welcome, David.
Cheers, man. Thanks for having me.
Karibu sana. This should be a good one. Let's just start from the beginning. Where did your journey into sports begin?
Yeah, I'd say obviously when I was like a youngster, I grew up in South B. And in the neighborhood, there was a lot of sports going on, a lot of kids with energy that needed to be taken somewhere. So I obviously got into football, and then I joined Strath, and obviously got into more organized sports. So I started learning basketball, some rugby, we did volleyball. So yeah, so I think
athletics. Were you also
athletics as well? Yeah, sprinter, swam a bit as well.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I think it's good to say that we are all in Strathmore Primary School, and that's where the multi-sport aspect was born about in Dr. Boyd's brain. So I think we also need to indicate that David Ambunya studied sports management from South Africa, and was actually very instrumental in setting up the systems for Next Gen Multisport Academy. So I think there'll be a lot of reference to that. And so I remember Dave in Strath. Yeah. You guys were 2 years behind me.
Yeah.
But you guys were playing on the level of guys, especially you. I know you were playing football at a level like 3 years older. Yeah. Do you know how your development was so successful? Because I believe you could have played for any sport you wanted. You could have gone to try out for Kenya, for Harambee Stars, or play football professionally.
Yeah.
What do you think was the catalyst in making you such a prolific multi-sport athlete?
Yeah, so I think so with me it was mostly the competitive aspect of it, like wanting to be the best. Even if maybe you're not like technically as good as other people in a certain sport, but you wanna be the best in your class.
Yeah.
So if it was basketball, I'd wanna be the best. If it was football, I'd wanna be the best. If it was rugby, which we didn't do much of, but we got into it like as we got to class 8. I wanted to be the best, and I think that drive and motivation just to be the best guy in the class in a certain sport drove me to maybe achieving those skills and succeeding at those sports.
And maybe that's where you and Dr. Boyd are such close friends, because he also shares that competitive aspect. Can you recall when you knew that out of all the sports they're good at, because also Dr. Boyd can play it out in any sport. How did you know that you wanted to do swimming? How did you end up representing Kenya in swimming?
Yeah, so swimming was not initially my favorite sport. Yeah. I loved football, rugby, and basketball, especially basketball. And that's what I did most of the time when I was younger. And we used to swim once in a while. I used to swim on Sundays with my dad and my brother. And when we're in Strathmore, we would play football at lunchtime, football in the morning. Sometimes we play rugby during the second term.
Yeah.
So I actually trained very hard. Anytime it was time for the football team to be selected, I would train very hard. But for some reason, I would only make the B team.
I
tried.
know that feeling because I similarly, I was desperate to get into the teams, the main teams. But I found myself basketball B team, football B team, rugby the same thing B team. But for me, if you're wondering what are my credentials, I didn't play professionally. But when I got to high school, I got the privilege of leading the Bandits, which is the vice captain of the Bandits, which was the rugby team of Strath. And I captained the Sangomas, which is the football team, and also the Pirates was the vice captain. And the only reason why I got there is training. So, for example, football. I was like, okay, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the biggest, but I have a low center of gravity and Nikona Ujanja mob. So
and a killer left foot.
By thanks for mentioning that. So So I trained. I became a free kick specialist. When it came to rugby, it was all about my kicking. So you find that thing that you're good at and you push it and it becomes like your stalwart, like your cornerstone. So just to push the conversation a bit further.
Maybe just to also add something else. What do you guys think about sports? Is it genetic or is it training? Because for me, I trained very hard for the various sports, but for some reason in swimming, I didn't train that much, but for some reason I was better than everyone else. That's how I got placed into that sport. Is it nature versus nurture, David? What do you think?
Like I think also the team aspect has a lot to do with it because you're not an individual if you're playing on the football field. So it's what you bring to that piece of what piece you bring to the puzzle and how you fit in. Whereas maybe like if it's an individual sport, if you're just running or athletics, it's one thing. That's all I'm doing. I'm swimming 50 meters freestyle. This is what I need to do to get there. But in a team dynamic, it's kidogo. It's a bit different, and you need to find your way there. You need to find your way and fit in the puzzle.
I think for me, it's a bit of both. Because there are some guys, they just wake up and they have the talent, and they're selected. But some people are about graft, and I think many times you'll hear in sports that talent will only get you so far. The rest is hard work. You look at someone like David Beckham. I don't know if you guys have seen that documentary. Beckham was not like was naturally gifted, but he said it himself. Every morning he'd wake up and he's just training himself to kick that ball. So eventually, that asset, it becomes an asset of yours that is so valuable to the team that you get to that level. So to answer your question, I think a little bit of both.
It has to be a bit of both.
But honestly, I think hard work beats
trumps talent.
Unless your talent is Messi level talent.
Ronaldo. Fat boy, CR7. No, CR9.
CR9 is unfortunate just because of his injuries. Otherwise, I think it'd been that good conversation.
Yeah, it has to be both.
So how did you find yourself getting into rugby? Like, how did that progression go? How was the pathway to professionals?
Okay, cool.
Rugby?
So obviously when I was younger, football obviously was my first love, and still is, to be fair. Like I enjoy football a lot. Rugby stuff. those days of training days are quite tough. But so I went to, like, from Strath, I went to Saints, and obviously like rugby was bigger in Saints than football. So I did both, but the competitive nature in me, like, gravitated towards rugby a bit more because we were recognized. We were playing in the provincials, playing at the nationals, like being one of the top schools in the sport in the country. So by virtue of that, like when I was in Form 3, 17, I got selected to Kenya Under 19. Even if in the back of my head, I was just thinking, bro, I want to play football later. Like I'm just doing this because I'm in Saints and but it grew on me. Got selected to Under 19, Form 3 obviously, then Form 4, Form 4 played for Queens as well, like in the under-20s. And also my relatives are Queens guys. Like so like my mom's bros all played for Queens, captain Queens, coached Kenya. My uncle is still on the in the KRU Nini. So they sort of like guided me towards rugby. Like it was a natural, it was a natural progression for me to compete at a high level and earn honors like for my country.
Okay.
It came simpler to me. Like I went straight into it. After Form 4, joined Queens, played Kenya team, both 7s and 15s that same year. So it just took off after that.
Fantastic. I think, honestly, for me, after high school, I did go training with Nondis, but I honestly didn't adapt to the culture. And I think maybe that's what waylaid me. Plus also, when we're young, we don't really know exactly what we want. Maybe there's a bit of disillusionment that I didn't get an opportunity to go abroad and exploit that way. And that's maybe why one of the reasons why I feel like what we're doing at Next Gen is important to help people find that pathway. Yeah. So, Dr. Boyd, just to piggyback off what you said, how did your pathway lead you to representing Kenya in swimming?
So mine is similar like David's here. So I was still a multi-sport athlete all the way until I was in Form 1.
Yeah.
So I got taken to a school somewhere in Kangundo called Brookshine. After I finished class 8.
Yeah.
So there, the sports facilities were horrible, but what they had was a fantastic swimming pool. So to pass the time, I just joined the swimming team, went for my first competition, and I immediately qualified for for AAA. So AAA was the highest standard of swimming competition in Nairobi.
Okay.
So when I saw that happening, I actually got quite intrigued because my name was in the newspaper. I got medals. I get recognition in the school.
Yeah.
It was something similar.
Yeah.
So I think actually if it was any school with any sport, I think I would have
done something else.
I would have thrived.
So okay. So it wasn't really. It was something about your circumstances leading you to that path, but not really from a young age. You know exactly this is where I'm going.
I never thought I would
never thought you'd be a swimmer.
In fact, swimming was one of my. I used to be really good at it. In fact, it was the one I was the best at, but it wasn't the one I enjoyed the most.
Okay.
But once I went there, it just became ingrained in me. And that's what pushed me to the next level.
Fantastic. And now, Dave.
Yeah.
Would you say that your multi-sport background made you a better rugby player?
For a fact. So there are very many aspects of different sports that come in together when you're playing like a sport. Like if you're playing rugby, you'd be able to look at space. You'd be able to find the space.
Yeah.
You'd be able to run forward instead of like running backwards or whatever. And different aspects of different sports really help you in a certain sport.
So like they can cross overs.
They cross over,
Kicking
like the crossover
also.
skills, kicking. Like in fact, even me, I kicked a lot in my rugby career, and I attribute that to football. Yeah, and basketball, maybe having good hands, handling, being athletic, jumping high can help you in rugby as well. So definitely, like not choosing a sport too early is definitely the way to go, because you equip yourself with all the necessary skills.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready to choose or make that decision, you have a clear mind.
Yeah. And you have different attributes that you have been collecting from the different sports.
Yeah.
Dr. Boyd, can you expound on that? Is there, in terms of from the scientific point of view, what are the kind of benefits that training in a multi-sport environment as a young athlete helps in the long run?
The biggest one is first burnout. Let's look at it from a psychological perspective.
Yeah.
Kids who are placed in a single sport from a very young age experience burnout. And they were collecting some data in South Africa on rugby. And they were saying the transition from 13 years, once they reach 13 years, trying to get now to like the mid-teen years, is almost an 80% dropout rate for rugby. And then later, another 30 or 40% drop off at about the time they're 16 or 17.
Okay.
So that high dropout rate is attributed to being, when you're just doing one sport over and over again, you get, especially when you're young, there's huge amounts of burnout. And it's across the board. Like us in swimming, I saw it. the kids who used to swim only from the time they were 6 dropped out. Us who did multi-sport continued for a longer period. Number 2 is also injuries. There are a lot of injuries like ACL injuries in the UK for teenagers. And it's because they're just doing football. So there's no multi-sport angle.
Yeah.
And then also it's transferable skills, as David was saying. It actually helps when, if you're playing basketball and you played rugby and football, they're transferable skills. If it's tennis you played, you have hand-eye coordination that you'd have never gotten. And then finally, being able to be placed in a sport where you enjoy, in a sport where you show the most promising. Me and David were lucky enough to be talented in a multi-spectrum of sports.
Yeah.
But there are some kids who, for some reason, they don't grasp the multiple sports. But when they test different ones over time, they're like, okay, perfect. This is the one that I would want to continue doing, because maybe they love it or maybe it just comes naturally. The talent element.
Yeah.
So sometimes if they get placed in the sport early enough, they're able to progress. And that's why I keep talking about the 10,000 hour rule. I talk about it over and over. Yeah. So the 10,000 hour rule was made popular, I think in the 80s or the 90s, that you need 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to become an expert.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, there's a caveat to that. There's 10 plus or minus 5,000 hours. So again, it can take 5,000, like the three of us sitting here, if we're all playing rugby, it can take you 5,000 hours to become an expert.
Yeah.
It can take David 10,000 hours, and I might never become an expert, or it might even take me 25,000 hours. So the multi-sport places you sort of in the one where you might have a lower threshold where you can actually
to reach your best.
So those are some of the benefits. There are many more, but we can't expound.
Okay, by the way, that's very interesting, because I feel like even the multi-sport aspect allows you to explore your talents. I'll give maybe an anecdotal testimony from Next Gen. I shouldn't say his name, but one of our kids came. The dad is one of our coaches.
Yeah.
And they just knew he's going to be a footballer. Yeah. But now he's excelling so well in tennis. Yeah. And they didn't know. He's just collecting medals in tennis, and it's not something they even thought about. So I think the multi-sport aspect helps you to discover who you are as a child and where your talents lie. And that helps you to direct your energies the right way. And
then also when you get an opportunity, you will take it, because like for me and David, if I'd never swam, I would have gone to Brookshen and I would have not had the opportunity to swim.
To do it.
I'd have not been able to grasp. But it allows you, wherever you're placed in any environment, you can take advantage of whatever is there.
Yeah, so that's a shameless plug for Next Gen Multisport Academy. You guys can check us out on our website. Dave, I wanted to ask you, what's your greatest ever sporting moment?
Wow, like I haven't thought about that like specifically, but like thinking back, some of my greatest team moments were when I was in Saints.
Okay.
When I was in Saints, there was a camaraderie and a brotherhood that you could die. You could die. You're going on that field and you're dying for someone. So,
I know.
So I think one of my biggest moments was playing against RV, I think in 2008 in the Prescott Cup finals, and conditions were like they couldn't be written any better. It's raining. The game has gone to extra time.
This is the final?
This is the finals of Prescott. 208, I think. 208. And RV had a chance to win it with an extra time penalty. The guy missed. Then I got a penalty farther than I'd ever kicked before. Out of my range. Changed everything. My cadence towards the ball. My steps were farther. In the rain. Kicked it. Just went over the bar. Won the game like that. So that's.
And you lifted the Prescott.
And we lifted the Prescott Cup.
The football background helped you.
That was the football background that came through.
Yeah.
So I know, Maze, these moments, and it's interesting that you've gone back to high school.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain passion that is in high school rugby, high school sports. That camaraderie that you have. Does it translate to club rugby? How can that be built? How can we elevate that loyalty and passion
like
to club rugby?
Feel like you belong. So it's difficult in club rugby. I think maybe my first years in Queens is where I felt that. I felt there was still that loyalty, that brotherhood. You are fighting for the same cause. But as time went, things changed a bit. You are replaceable on the team. It's not all you are thinking of. You are doing other things. Whereas like in high school you're together every day. It's a goal that you guys share together. And in club rugby, I think maybe KCB or Cabras maybe are starting to
build that,
to build that element of brotherhood and unity in sports by maybe incentivizing their players. Maybe like at KCB, they get a better incentive. They want to hang out together more out of the kawaida, like training sessions and things like that. In Cabras, obviously, they've organized housing. They stay like communally and things like that. So it's difficult in club rugby to have that loyalty because, again, people move. Sometimes it's about money. Sometimes it's about progressing your career further. Whereas in high school, there was none of that. It was just playing for the, like me and Saints,
play for your next man,
play for your next man. Yeah. So it's a bit difficult in club rugby, but a few clubs are getting there slowly.
Can I summarize that by just saying it's money? Because money breeds professionalism. Because if like the Cabras, you wake up in the morning, these guys are going to sort out your rent, your nini, and you're together, these guys, you spend more time. I think that professionalism is what we need to strive towards, where you can actually make a proper living out of representing your club. And before we go further, I want to get yours.
I need to ask David something first before. Okay. So he has had the opportunity to play for University of Cape Town, Aikis. He had the opportunity to play for Western Province under 21, if I'm not wrong. So what is the difference? What do you feel is the difference between first university grade rugby that they play there and here, and then secondly at club rugby? What did you feel was the difference, and what can we do better?
Yeah, so it's what Njora said, to be fair. Like it's professionalism. Like if there's incentive, and you feel like you need to do something because, okay, I'm on a contract and it's your day job basically. So it's your 9 to 5 and you're compensated well and it's something that you enjoy doing. So I think those things have to go hand in hand because at club rugby here, some people can't even afford a meal. And then not being incentivized properly. Making it to practice becomes now an afterthought. Like you're striving too hard to just make it to training and you feel like you're not being compensated enough. So I think that incentive, being in a position to earn a living, to provide from doing what you love, is what should come first.
Commensurate remuneration for the effort you're putting into that team.
Then maybe I can now say about mine. I think that's what you asked.
Your best ever sporting moment.
So my best ever sporting moment was when I was 16. So we were swimming the 50 freestyle at level, not sprints and relays, at Aga Khan High School. So my two teammates, there was one Italian guy and another Canadian. So of course, them coming from those countries, they used to not look down upon. We used to train with us, so they used to think maybe we're not as good as them. So of course they told me, if you beat us, each of us will give you 10,000.
Challenge.
Are you serious?
Challenge accepted.
You accepted challenge.
And, okay, honestly, until that point, they had beaten me my entire life. So I got really upset. Very upset. In fact, I went to the side of the marshalling area, put my headphones on. Immediately as I went in for the dive, I was screaming throughout the entire 50.
You were screaming in the water.
I was screaming.
It was war, fighting.
And actually beat them.
And you got that 10K.
I know. So now that's a thing. So what happened was I got scared initially. So I didn't bet because now I would have had to pay them.
I would have had to pay them.
And at the time I'm only 16.
You're confident.
I don't know where I can get the money, but I was really upset that they could insinuate that I can't.
But at the end of the day, you took them out.
I took them out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Can I remember my favorite moment? I think it has to be as a for a football team. When this is Form 2, I was really
all of us going back to high school.
Going back to high school.
That's years ago.
It's strange, but you see, I think it's because also those are the first memories that you're really making from sports, like when you're learning the game. So as guys, we went for this tournament at Roslyn. It was 7-a-side. And I took that tournament by storm. And we only lost in the final to Brookhouse. But I collected the MVP award.
Yeah.
Now, you see, the thing is, this is at Roslyn. And the schools that are there is ISK, RBA, Brayburn, Hillcrest.
Yeah.
So I'm walking around there with the MVP trophy like this.
Yeah.
You know that the attendants there, mummies who call
Yeah.
So it was shining. I'm telling you, I slept with that trophy over there in the bed. But like I'm saying, I think it's a weird takeaway that we're all going back to high school and you played.
These last years, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And I think we're calling for that professionalism to reach that stage where you can wake up. I remember in high school, you wake up, you're thinking about the sports through the day that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah.
Remember then in Strathprimer we'd play TB soccer in the morning.
Yeah.
That's before class. You enter class, you're steaming.
Yeah.
You're throwing steam because you played an hour of football in the morning. At break, you have 15 minutes. You play touch rugby or something.
Yeah.
At lunchtime again. Then in the evening, you do either a game if you're competing, or you just play a funny game with each other.
In fact, a funny story, just a very short one. So, just before GHC class 8, I played TB soccer in the morning. I think you remember. I came into the KCP exam, my head was steaming. The teacher was so mad, he made me stay outside for 15 minutes.
That Mr. What no, it was?
Monkey. I know.
Mr. Monkey. Mr. Kiai.
Yeah, my head was steamy. I still got 85 in GHC. So it doesn't mean there's a sports will affect your performance. That was my highest grade was GHC.
And by there's that connect. If you're doing well in sports, it follows that you stay healthy, you have more energy, even studies do well. Yeah. You do well in your studies. Yeah. So in the interest of time, I wanted us to just briefly discuss the new changes in rugby. And I want us to, maybe we can even, a talking point would be the rugby final, which we watched last night, where Sam Kane got a yellow, which was elevated into a red card, the captain of New Zealand. And it was because of head contact. Now, back in the day, that wouldn't have been a red card, wouldn't it? So, I wanted to know from your perspective, do you think this new HIA head injury assessment rules, are they benefiting the game, or how do you view it?
In terms of like a viewer perspective, or like someone like enjoying a match, it really doesn't, because there's a lot of stop-start. There's a lot of stop-start, too many breakages in play. But I guess the research was done like way before, and it's about health. It's about your health in the first place.
Health has to come first.
Exactly, and longevity of life. So it's helping in the long run. It's helping in the long run. Maybe as rugby progresses, the time will shorten between being able to be assessed and knowing that, okay, this is a head injury, he needs to come off and things like that, and body positions in tackles. So it's helping human beings in the long run. But for viewers of the game, it's creating a bit of hesitancy in enjoyment, because the game is stopping too often and too many times.
Dr. Boyd, can you?
I am personally an advocate of the new rules, because research has shown. So the main reason it was brought about was due to concussions or head impacts. So research was done, and when head impacts pass a specific velocity, the brain moves back and forth in the head. So whenever there is that damage in the head, it causes damage to some of the neurons in the brain, or causes damage within the brain. So what happens over time, you end up getting a condition called CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, where there is damage within your brain. And what happens is you start getting slowly dementia, depression, and issues creep up over time. So these new rules and regulations actually safeguard the athletes, even though the athletes do not want to beat themselves.
So much.
Because the athletes, if you were to ask them, they don't like it.
They don't like it.
But sometimes you need to protect people from themselves. And the game is still fun, because if the tackle height has been lowered, people are still tackling, they still contact. And then even with the lowered height, now the impact on the head
is reduced.
is reduced.
Okay.
So chances of concussions, chances of head injuries reduce.
Okay.
And this is something that they're now finding out when they're doing autopsies on ex-NFL players, rugby players, and athletes who were in contact. It's showing that there is an effect long-term. So it's something we're working on. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I think the game is developing. We're moving forward.
Yeah.
And Dave, thank you so much for joining us. I wish we could push this conversation a bit longer.
Yeah.
But that has been episode 3 of Spot the Difference.
Yeah.
Again, like, share, subscribe, comment. Let's have a conversation. Let's see how we can move sports forward in Kenya. So thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.